AP News. Al Jazeera. The latest. Hegseth vows most intense day yet of U.S. strikes as Iran aims to fight on. Multiple Arab states that host U.S. assets targeted in Iran retaliation. Today, March 3. Today we begin with a dramatic and historic moment unfolding on the global stage. The tension between the United States and Iran has reached what many analysts call the most dangerous phase in decades. Over the past days, military operations, missile warnings, and diplomatic breakdowns have pushed the world into a period of uncertainty. For viewers around the world watching closely, this moment feels like the final stages of a long-building confrontation. And in this video, we will break down everything that has happened, why it matters, and what could happen next. It all began with rising tensions over Iran's military capabilities and regional influence. For years, the United States and its allies have expressed concern about Iran's missile programs and strategic activities in the Middle East. Diplomatic talks were attempted earlier in 2026, but they struggled to produce a lasting agreement. The negotiations were complicated, indirect, and often tense, leaving both sides frustrated and uncertain about the future. Wikipedia. Then came a moment that shocked the world. At the end of February 2026, a large military operation launched coordinated strikes against targets inside Iran. This operation dramatically escalated the situation and changed the geopolitical landscape overnight. The strikes targeted key strategic sites and high-level leadership locations, marking a turning point that analysts say could redefine power dynamics across the region. Wikipedia. One of the most controversial outcomes of that operation was the death of Iran's supreme leader during an airstrike in Tehran. This event immediately triggered global reactions and intense political debate. In Iran, it led to emergency leadership changes and calls for retaliation, while around the world leaders urged calm and diplomacy to prevent a wider war. Wikipedia. But the story did not stop there. Within hours of the strikes, Iran began responding with missile and drone attacks aimed at U.S. military positions and allied locations in the Gulf region. These retaliatory actions demonstrated that Iran was prepared to continue the confrontation despite the risks. The message from Tehran was clear: the conflict was far from over. According to reports, the conflict quickly spread beyond one battlefield. Missile alerts were issued across parts of the Middle East, and several countries hosting American military facilities suddenly found themselves at the center of rising tension. Military bases, naval routes, and even digital infrastructure became potential targets as the crisis intensified. Al Jazeera. One of the most sensitive areas affected by the crisis is the Strait of Hormuz. This narrow waterway carries a huge portion of the world's oil supply, making it one of the most important economic corridors on Earth. When tensions escalated, shipping companies began warning about risks, and some vessels avoided the route entirely, raising concerns about global energy prices and supply disruptions. Wikipedia. Meanwhile, military activity intensified further. The United States announced that ongoing operations were designed to weaken Iran's missile and drone capabilities. Reports suggested that attacks had significantly reduced the number of missiles and drones launched by Iranian forces, though Iranian officials insisted that their resistance would continue. AP News. Iran's leadership responded with strong statements, promising that the country would not surrender to external pressure. Officials emphasized that missile operations would continue and that negotiations with the United States were not currently being considered. This announcement signaled that diplomacy had stalled and that the confrontation might continue for some time. Pakistan today. As the situation unfolded, global leaders began urging restraint. Many countries feared that if the conflict expanded further, it could pull in additional powers and destabilize the entire region. International organizations held emergency meetings, discussing ways to prevent escalation and protect civilians caught in the middle of the crisis. For ordinary people across the Middle East, the situation has been extremely tense. Air raid warnings, military movements, and economic uncertainty have created fear and confusion in several countries. Families in affected regions are closely following every development, hoping that diplomacy might eventually bring peace. At the same time, financial markets around the world reacted immediately. Oil prices fluctuated as investors worried about the security of energy supplies. Energy experts warned that prolonged instability in the Gulf could affect fuel prices globally, influencing economies far beyond the Middle East. Military analysts also began examining the strategic implications of the conflict. Some experts argue that this confrontation represents a shift toward a new era of warfare involving drones, cyber operations, and advanced intelligence systems. The battlefield is no longer limited to land or sea, it now includes cyberspace and digital infrastructure. In fact, recent attacks even targeted major digital infrastructure facilities in the region, demonstrating how modern conflicts now involve technology as much as traditional weapons. These developments highlight how global systems such as communication networks and data centers can become part of modern geopolitical struggles. The Guardian. Another dimension of the crisis is regional alliances. Countries across the Middle East are closely watching events, balancing security concerns with diplomatic relationships. Some governments have called for calm while quietly strengthening their defenses in case the situation spreads. Despite the tension, many international leaders continue pushing for diplomatic solutions. History shows that even the most intense conflicts can eventually move toward negotiations once both sides recognize the costs of prolonged confrontation. However, the current stage of the Iran-US crisis remains uncertain. Both sides appear determined to defend their strategic interests, and neither has shown clear signs of backing down. For viewers watching this story unfold, the most important question is simple: what happens next? Will diplomacy return, or will the conflict continue escalating? Experts believe the next few weeks could be crucial. If negotiations reopen, there may be an opportunity to reduce tensions and avoid a larger war. But if military operations continue at the same pace, the crisis could become one of the defining geopolitical events of the decade. One thing is certain: the entire world is watching. From Washington to Tehran, from Europe to Asia, governments and citizens alike are following every update closely. As we continue covering this story, we will bring you the latest developments, expert analysis, and the real impact of these events on global stability. And if you want to stay updated on major global news stories like this one, make sure you support the channel. Before we continue, take a moment to like this video if you find this coverage helpful, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next breaking update. Your support helps this channel bring more detailed and balanced explanations about world events that affect millions of people. Also share this video with your friends so more people can understand what is really happening behind the headlines. Because understanding global events is more important today than ever before. As the Iran-US situation continues evolving, we will keep monitoring every development and explaining it in clear, simple terms. Stay tuned, stay informed, and remember that the story is still unfolding, and the next chapter could change the course of global history.